You did everything right. You got the degree. You got the job. And yet, one unexpected bill could still collapse your entire month. This isn't failure. It's something much more disturbing, and almost no one is talking about it. You've probably seen him before. Maybe this morning. Maybe yesterday. Maybe you're about to see him today. He's sitting in a coffee shop on a random weekday. Laptop open, AirPods in, dressed like he has his life together. His shirt is crisp. His watch looks expensive. His confidence feels effortless. From the outside, he looks exactly like the kind of person society tells you you're supposed to become. What you don't see is what happens when he checks his bank account later that night. What you don't see is the quiet math running in his head. Rent, subscriptions, insurance, groceries, and the sinking realization that one unexpected charge could push everything off balance. No crisis. No drama. Just pressure. This is what being broke looks like now. Not the kind of broke people talk about. Not the kind that gets sympathy or help. This is being quietly broke. You're working. You're functioning. You're doing everything you were told to do. And yet, you never feel safe. You don't feel poor. But you don't feel secure either. Every plan depends on nothing going wrong. Every step forward feels temporary. Every success feels thinner than it should. And that's the part nobody warns you about. An entire generation followed the rules, climbed the ladder, checked all the boxes, only to discover that the ladder itself was missing half its rungs. Welcome to Quietly Broke. This channel exists to talk about the things that don't show up on Instagram, LinkedIn, or financial advice blogs, the numbers behind the anxiety, the systems behind the stress, and why so many people who look fine are anything but. If this already feels uncomfortably familiar, make sure to subscribe to Quietly Broke. It's the best way to support the channel and help keep these conversations going. Before we go any further, let me ask you something. Which one feels closer to your life right now? A. You're doing okay, but everything feels fragile. B. You're struggling, even though it looks like you shouldn't be. Comment A or B below. Here's the uncomfortable truth that sits beneath that feeling of fragility. If this were just about discipline, budgeting, or better choices, the numbers would look very different by now. Because when you zoom out, Quietly Broke isn't emotional. It's mathematical. For decades, building a normal adult life followed a predictable pattern. You earned money, you paid your bills, and what was left over slowly turned into stability. That equation no longer holds. Start with housing, because this is where the break becomes impossible to ignore. Home prices didn't just rise. They detached. Incomes climbed gradually, while housing costs accelerated. Down payments expanded faster than savings accounts could grow. And every time wages inched forward, prices adjusted right along with them. The goal didn't move once. It moved continuously. For many people, the problem isn't that homeownership is hard. It's that it never becomes easier. Saving feels like chasing a finish line that keeps drifting further away. Education followed a similar trajectory. College was framed as an investment that would pay for itself over time. But for a large share of graduates, student debt didn't unlock opportunity. It delayed it. Monthly payments reduced flexibility, narrowed options, and forced people to prioritize survival over progress. The debt wasn't temporary. It became structural. Then there are the costs nobody calls luxuries because they aren't. Healthcare premiums, insurance deductibles, transportation, utilities. These expenses didn't explode overnight, but they rose quietly and consistently, absorbing more income each year. You don't notice the shift all at once. You feel it when saving stops working the way it used to. This is the part that gets misunderstood. It isn't that people want more. It's that the baseline costs of a normal life now consume a larger share of income than they ever did before. Previous generations built wealth on affordable foundations. They could plan because the ground beneath them was stable. Today, that foundation is fractured. Even careful planning rests on assumptions that no longer hold. When the math stops cooperating, effort loses its power. You can do everything right and still fall behind. Not because you failed, but because the system quietly recalibrated itself without telling you. Quietly Broke lives in that gap between effort and outcome. Where progress feels slower than the rules promised. Where stability always seems just out of reach. And once you see that this isn't about motivation or discipline, the question changes. It stops being, "What am I doing wrong?" and becomes, "What changed without anyone noticing?" That's the question we have to answer next. And once that question settles in, something subtle but powerful begins to shift. When people realize that effort no longer guarantees progress, they don't usually collapse or rebel. They adjust, quietly, internally, in ways that are easy to judge and hard to understand. This is where the conversation around money often becomes unfair. From the outside, it looks like people are spending more, saving less, and caring less about the future. But what's actually happening is a psychological recalibration. When long-term goals start to feel unreachable, the human brain stops treating them as real. It doesn't matter how rational the plan looks on paper. If the outcome feels imaginary, motivation disappears. Delayed gratification only works when delay still leads somewhere. When saving for years doesn't meaningfully change your position, the value of waiting collapses. Why sacrifice today if tomorrow doesn't look safer? Why postpone comfort if security never arrives? This is how present-focused spending takes hold. Not as recklessness, but as self-preservation. Small moments of control replace distant promises. Not because people don't understand compound interest or future planning, but because they've run the numbers and stopped believing those systems will work in their favor. Budgeting advice assumes stability. It assumes consistent income, predictable expenses, and a future that rewards patience. But when income fluctuates, costs rise without warning, and emergencies feel inevitable, that advice starts to feel disconnected from reality. And over time, this disconnect does something dangerous. It erodes trust. Not just trust in financial systems, but trust in yourself. You start questioning whether planning even matters, whether restraint is worth it, whether effort is being wasted, and that internal doubt has consequences. Financial stress doesn't stay contained. It bleeds into decision-making, mental health, and relationships. The brain under constant pressure operates in survival mode. Short-term thinking becomes dominant, not because people are careless, but because their nervous system is exhausted. This creates a loop that's difficult to escape. Stress makes good financial decisions harder. Poor outcomes increase stress. And the cycle tightens quietly, month after month. Quietly broke isn't just a description of someone's bank account. It's a state of mind shaped by repeated disappointment. A learned response to a system that stopped delivering what it promised. And once that mindset takes hold, the struggle isn't just about money anymore. It's about hope. And when hope starts to thin out, many people assume the solution is simple: earn more. That belief feels logical. Income should fix the problem. And for a while, it does. The paycheck grows. The job title improves. From the outside, everything finally looks stable. But for a growing number of people, the relief never arrives. Because quietly broke doesn't disappear at higher income levels. It just changes shape. 6 figures used to represent security. A milestone where the anxiety softened and the future opened up. Today, for many households, it represents something very different. Not comfort, not freedom, just enough to stay afloat without sinking. Housing absorbs a larger share of income than ever before. Healthcare costs no longer feel occasional, they feel constant. Childcare rivals rent in some cities. Transportation, insurance, and education stack on top of each other until even a strong salary feels thin. This creates a dangerous illusion. On paper, you look successful. In reality, your financial life has no margin. You earn too much to qualify for help, but not enough to feel safe. And that in-between space is one of the most stressful places to live financially. This is the middle-class trap. It's not defined by poverty. It's defined by fragility. One medical bill, one layoff, one unexpected expense. That's all it takes to expose how narrow the path really is. At the same time, the nature of work itself has shifted. Stability used to come bundled with employment. Predictable paychecks, benefits, a sense of continuity. Now, more people earn through contracts, commissions, gig platforms, and variable income streams. Flexibility increases, security disappears. When income fluctuates, planning collapses. You don't think in decades, You think in months. You delay decisions not because you lack ambition, but because the ground keeps moving beneath you. And then there's the issue of ownership. Previous generations built wealth by holding assets. Homes appreciated, equity compounded quietly over time. Those who owned early benefited disproportionately. Those who didn't were locked out of the most reliable wealth-building mechanism of the modern era. When you're priced out of ownership, you're not just missing a purchase. You're missing decades of compounding. Each year without access widens the gap further. And no amount of budgeting can replace that. This is why the struggle feels invisible. People assume high earners are fine. They assume professionalism equals stability. They assume good salaries mean good outcomes. But quietly broke thrives behind those assumptions. It hides behind polished resumes and clean apartments. It lives in households that look successful while carrying constant pressure. It's not the result of bad decisions. It's the result of a system that rewards those who already have assets and punishes those still trying to reach them. At some point, the realization sets in. This isn't about individuals failing to catch up. It's about an economy that moved forward without waiting for them. And once you see that, the story shifts again. And once that realization settles in, the story stops being about individual choices and starts becoming something much harder to ignore. Quietly broke is not a personal failure. It's the collision point between old expectations and a new reality that no longer supports them. For years, people were taught that responsibility would be rewarded, that patience would compound, that stability was something you earned by following the rules. But those rules were written for a different economy. One where the basic building blocks of a normal life were within reach. What Quietly Broke reveals is what happens when those blocks are pulled away while the expectations remain. You're still told to plan, to save, to think long-term, even as the ground beneath those plans becomes increasingly unstable. When the outcome doesn't match the effort, the blame quietly shifts inward. That's the most damaging part. People internalize a structural problem and carry it as personal shame. They wonder why progress feels so fragile, why they're anxious despite doing well, why security never arrives, even when they've checked every box they were told mattered. But the pattern is bigger than any one person. Wages didn't keep pace with the cost of stability. Asset ownership became concentrated. Risk was pushed downward, onto individuals least equipped to absorb it. The pathways that once built middle-class security narrowed, while the pressure to appear successful stayed exactly the same. Quietly Broke lives in that contradiction. You look fine. You function. You keep going. All while absorbing a level of financial pressure that previous generations rarely faced at the same stage of life. And this isn't just a snapshot of the present. It's a preview. Younger generations are entering an economy with even higher costs, more instability, and fewer guarantees. If nothing changes, Quietly Broke won't be an exception. It will be the default. Understanding this doesn't fix the system overnight, but it does something important. It removes the blame. It reframes the struggle. And it makes one thing clear: if this feels familiar, you're not failing. You're navigating an economic reality that quietly changed without asking your permission. That's what Quietly Broke is really about. Before we wrap up, it's important to step back and look at what this really means for everyday life. Being quietly broke isn't a sign that you failed or made the wrong choices. It's the result of living in an economy where the cost of stability has risen faster than incomes, faster than savings, and faster than most people were prepared for. Many are doing what they were taught to do, yet still feel pressure, anxiety, and uncertainty. That gap between effort and outcome can quietly wear people down, especially when no one talks about it honestly. The deeper lesson here is this: you can't judge your progress using rules that no longer match reality. When you understand that the system has changed, you stop turning structural problems into personal shame. That shift matters. It allows you to make calmer decisions, set more realistic expectations, and define success in ways that protect your mental and financial health. Applied to daily life, this means focusing less on comparison and more on stability as it actually exists today. It means planning with flexibility, being honest about pressure, and giving yourself permission to move at a pace that fits the world you're in now, not the one you were promised. Now, I'd like to hear from you. Do you feel more pressure today from rising costs? Or from expectations about where you should be by now? Please share your thoughts in the comments so others can read and reflect as well. And if this video resonated with you, consider subscribing to Quietly Broke. Your support helps the channel continue creating thoughtful content like this.